Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm going to take a look at my own desktop. Yes, my own daily driver. And this actually was inspired by a comment from Jonas a while back. He had made a suggestion that, hey, why don't you show your daily driver and show us what you're running? And so I decided, you know what, that's a good idea. So here I am. I'm on my desktop, and currently I am running i3. This is my desktop here, and this is just a blank background. We have my Polybar up on top. And when I first log in, the first thing that happens is a little upgrader code runs from my config file. And when that runs, then I get this window here. And so this is kind of a customized terminal window that I got there. And so when I first start my computer, if I choose to, I can just go ahead and run the updates here and just authenticate. And then it'll come up here, check my updates. And I'm running Fedora. And there are no updates right now because I'm up to date. So I am also running Fedora as my distro. I'm running one of the spins actually, XFCE spin. And then in addition to XFCE, I installed i3, which is my daily driver, because I still like good old Xorg. Wayland just doesn't work for me very well, even though I do have Hyprland on, and we'll jump in there a little later too. But Wayland is just not ready for me. Depending on what you do, it may be ready for you, but for me, it's just not there. It's, well, to be perfectly blunt, it still sucks for me. So that's just the way it is. So here it's showing in our fast fetch, and I can just zoom in on that a bit, maybe not that bit. And then here you can see that I'm running Fedora 41 XFCE as the base install, and then I just went ahead and added i3 to it from DNF. And one of the things I really like about Fedora is I really like the DNF package manager. It's using DNF 5 now by default, and DNF 5 is really fast. I think it's got an edge over OpenSUSE's painfully slow zipper. DNF just feels great. And of course, it's just really stable. I get the pretty up-to-date software and at the same time, stability. So yeah, it's a great combo. And then running Intel graphics and so forth. Fast Fetch is also showing audio things that are open right now. So yeah, that's kind of what I see when I first start up. And that all comes out of my config file. And I have a hotkey actually to Genie, which is just super E for editor. And that'll bring up Genie in my number 4 workspace here. One of the things I like about i3 is that it only opens up the workspaces that I have things open in. And for me, I like that. Some people don't, but I like just showing the workspaces that have things in it. That way I don't have to worry about workspaces that have items in it, but I don't know which workspaces have them in and which don't, or I don't have to worry about coding a certain color to assign to a workspace that's occupied versus one that's not. i3 just kind of makes all that really easy. For me, it's just a lot cleaner that way too, so I like that. That's one of the things I think I like about i3, and it's just so darn dependable. It's really stable. I have no issues with i3. It's easy to config. And my i3 config, I think, is open somewhere in here. I could just like bring up my file manager here, is that super T, and just jump into my config and then go into my i3 folder because I want to pop in here anyway. And if I pop in i3, all I need is this config file. I got other things in here that I just kind of played with, but really everything is just integrated right here into my config file. So if I just open that, and I'm going to move my Thunar over to workspace 1, super shift 1, and that'll send it off, and that way I can get a fuller screen here. So this is my config file for i3, and it's quite simple actually. At least for me it is. So here it's showing to always start up xrender. I can use another monitor if I like, which is actually my TV set. And exec always actually means that it'll execute anytime I refresh the script there. I probably don't need always there for xrender, but you never know. When you hook up a TV, it's kind of handy, I suppose. And then exec by itself just means it'll only launch it one time. The next time I refresh this configuration, then it'll ignore that because it's not an exec always. So that's kind of the difference there. And then you got your super key. This is the variable for it, mod. So you can kind of think of it like an alias. And mod 4 is actually the super key itself designation through i3. And I also created another one for the Alt key. And so your Alt key, i3 Alt key is mod 1, but I made a variable for it, or alias if you want to, if it's easier to comprehend. I got it, the $ designates that it's a variable. So I got $alt there. And then here it'll launch PyCom at startup, which is a compositor. And then I got my fonts here set up and so forth. And then here, my system update screen, which was what we saw earlier, the blue terminal. I gave it a window rule here. So the title on that terminal was called System Upgrade. And so here I'm telling i3 that whenever a window comes up that has a title called System Upgrade, then keep it on Workspace 1. So that way it'll show up on Workspace 1. Then we got our auto start environment, and XSet that's off. We'll turn off the screen locker because I don't like the screen locker or having a screen lock. So I have that off by default. So I got this line on here for that, and I'm just zooming in here so this is easier to see. So that will disable the screen lock. And then I find the system beep to be really annoying. So if you're like in the terminal and you backspace too many times, you get that little beep beep, and that's pretty annoying. So this code right here will turn that beep sound off. So I got that turned off. And then of course our usual staples like our Ethernet applet there. I want to turn on numlock every time, so I got this up here. I installed numlock X so I can have the numlock on every time it starts. Then we got our nitrogen restore. This nitrogen is our wallpaper app. This will restore the last wallpaper that I loaded in nitrogen. And that happens to be this wallpaper right here, which I think is really nice. So that's got a really nice colors in it. And so I just have that load in every time. And someday if I go back into nitrogen and change the wallpaper, then it'll remember it. And then I got all kinds of different things in here, different key bindings for Lazarus IDE, for example. If I hit Super I, that'll open up my IDE. And I got workspace WS3 designated here. So that is WS3 is the variable for workspace 3. And so that means Lazarus will open up in workspace 3. And then I assigned it a class name over here with this double hyphen class Lazarus, because I want it to open up in workspace 3. So if I assign it a class, then I don't have to use xprop and go in there and look for what its properties are. I can just tell it myself what I want the class to be. And then down here, I can assign the class Lazarus, which is this, to workspace 3. That means Lazarus will open up in workspace 3. And then if I wanted it to float as well, then here I can use the for window. And so I could do for window class equals Lazarus, floating enabled. So that would turn on floating, and then I would have a floating window instead of a tiling window. Right now I have that commented out, but if I were to have that floating, that's all I'd have to do. And then the same for Qt Creator. I got Thunar as my file manager with Super T and Super C to open up my terminal. Genie, OBS Studio, Screenshot, and so forth. So that is all those. And then my different workspaces here. And they're kind of set up pretty standard. Super 1 through 9 to open up a workspace. Super Shift 1 through 9 to send them over. And then these are my reload and logout commands. So for example, if I want to reload the config file, it would be Super Shift R, and Super Shift X will restart the i3 environment. So if I need to refresh the polybar for whatever reason, that'll do it. And then down here, I got some coding here that I put in to instantly reboot or instantly go to the login screen, or to instantly shut down without being nagged, because by default, I would have a nag screen come up, but I don't really need all that. If I want to shut down, I'm just going to shut down. And same with a reboot. So that's what this is. And so Super Shift R will just automatically reboot without asking, and Super Shift S will just shut right down without asking. And that's because I'm using the system control reboot and power off. And then to log out of the session right now without asking, Super Shift L, or I'm sorry, Super Alt L and Super Alt S to shut down and Super Alt R to reboot. And then you might notice here you got no startup ID. And in case you're wondering what that means, that just means that there's no spinner. So your mouse pointer will just stay a pointer. And so that way you don't see a spinner, because there's no reason to see a spinner when you're running certain things, especially console-based commands. So that's what that no startup ID is that it cancels out the spinner. And then down here, this is my code that I use to launch my little updater here. So what I did was I'm telling i3 to open up XFCE for terminal, and then -H and -T, and then T is a title, and then check for updates. Here I got a color background, and that's setting the background to navy. That's why you had that navy blue color in the background when the terminal opened up. And then I'm executing a bash script here to the console, and it is sudo dnf upgrade -y. The Y is so I don't have to answer yes to updating and so forth. And so by running this, this allows all that to happen and brings up the prompt for me to run as sudo. So that's kind of what that's all about. And then I assigned it a class name, and I just simply called it floating because I wanted the window to float instead of being a full screen window when it came up at startup. And so I did a for window class equals floating, which is what I named it. And then floating enabled means that it's going to allow that window to float when it opens up. So that's what that's all about. And then down here is where I execute my polybar. So I got this exec always, no startup ID again, kill all polybar. So what that does is that kills the polybar first. And then down here, it'll actually start the polybar. And so here it will run the polybar. And I got this -C because it's launching the polybar straight based on the config file here. So that's kind of what the -C is to designate the config file. So the reason I have it kill the bar first is because if I have to make a change here in the config file and then refresh everything and relaunch the polybar, I don't want to have two polybars show up because we got to kill the old polybar to bring up the new instance. That's why you have this kill all here. And that's actually in a launch sh script as well, but I don't like calling to that. I prefer just calling to directly to the config ini. And I can't remember why now, but there was a reason I did that a long time ago. So that's a little tour of my config file. Nice. And so let's just go to a blank area. There we go. And let's take a look at our polybar real quick. So up here I got CB, which is our change background. And this is actually a script that I typed from Arco Linux. Arco Linux is actually my favorite Arch-based Linux. And this change background will let me change the background of a wallpaper. So if I click that, it'll change the background. Actually, it won't now. Okay. I guess I quit working when I changed over to Fedora. But actually, I could easily fix that. But that's what that is actually there for. So I guess I'll have to fix that. And then, of course, my workspaces are designated here. And then over here, I got my pop-up calendar. Pop-up calendar is something I got from GitHub. And then I customized it myself so I could have these different colors. And then I wanted the clock to be bold font. So I kind of customized that in the script as well. And then when you click on it, it brings up a little pop-up calendar, which is really cool. And then you can kind of go scroll through the months if you need to. And then today is February 7th. And I forgot what year it is, 2025. Holy crap. I thought it was 1931. So that's our pop-up calendar. And then over here we got our weather here. So I can see that it's 73 degrees. And when you click on it, it refuses a connection. So I must be having some kind of issue there at the moment, but typically that works. And then it brings up the forecast using WTTR.in. You have a little console weather forecast for the next 3 days, and that's pretty nice, but for some reason it's just not working right now. But that uses YAD, yet another dialog, and I compiled that to use HTML, and so that way I can see WTTR weather.in in the console. And so that's a little bit of customization I did in the polybar script there. We got our CPU, and then this is my volume control. And if I click on it, it'll mute. Click on it again, unmute, and then right click, it'll bring up my PAVU control where I can adjust my sound settings and so forth. So that's how you bring that up. And that's all in the Polybar settings. And then of course I got my sys tray over here, and you can see my OBS Studio is recording, luckily, hopefully. And then Ethernet activity. So that's what that's all about. And back over here on our configurations and all that, I got a ton of stuff open, probably more stuff than I need. This is the config ini file for my Polybar. And scroll down, and we got even more stuff. There's our weather. That's my weather script that corresponds to this up here, the overcast clouds and all that. And like I said, when you click on this, it usually launches the weather, but it's not working today, or at least at the moment. And that happens sometimes. The website, for whatever reason out there, sometimes just goes down, gets too much traffic or something, but it'll probably be working again one of these days. But anyways, that's that. And then when I come up here near the top, I customized a few things, like, for example, my colors. I changed the background to be an emerald green with just a slight bit of transparency. That's denoted by these double E. I don't like a lot of transparency, but I like just a little bit. So I got just a little bit of transparency in the bar and so forth. And so these are kind of where I change my colors and make customizations. And then of course down here is where I kind of have my items. So here I got my change background script, which currently isn't working. And then my i3 stuff, which are the workspaces, and then X window, which is this, kind of showing what's open. And then in my module center, I got the pop-up calendar, and then I got the weather, CPU, volume, and sys tray all over here. And so that's what corresponds to this. Very cool. So yeah, very straightforward, very simple. And this is just something I had left over from Arco Linux, and I just repurposed it for i3 on Fedora. So it works just fine. That's the nice thing about Polybar. It's pretty portable. And so that's that. So that's the config file. That's my stuff. And when I want to open up my web browser, for example, I can just hit Super B for browser, and that'll move me over to Workspace 2, and then it'll open up the browser because, like I said before, I had it configured for Workspace 2. Generally on Workspace 1, I just put my other things like my Thunar, or if I need to open up a console, Super C, then I got my console right here. And I don't recall if I showed the fast fetch, but if I zoom in on that a little bit, maybe not that much, but these are the different things. And I think I was already here, but I don't think I went into too much detail. But I'm running Linux Fedora 41 with the 6.12 kernel and Bash for the console. And then, of course, i3 on X11. And then these are my different themes here. So I'm running the Surf and Arc and so forth. And actually, to change my themes, I installed LX Appearance. And so LX Appearance gives me an easy way to change my themes here on i3. So if I jump in like into here, onto a blank space, and just open up my Rofi menu, then I can pop in here and just type in LX for short, and it'll bring up my customized look and feel. And so I can just hit that and open that up. And here I can easily just change my different widget colors and my overall accent colors and my icon themes. I can just select them all right here. And currently I think I'm using, I forgot, I'm using this theme. I don't remember what that was, but if I wanted to change it to something else, like mint, one of the mint flavors, I could do that right here. And the purple's kind of cool, so I could just hit that and apply it. And then this would come up, the mint purple, the next time I got into it. Easy peasy to change my look there. And so LX Appearance for me, I think is really nice to have on i3 or even any other thing like Qtile or BSPWM. It just makes it a lot easier to deal with theming and so forth. I can change my mouse cursor here, set my fonts. We got other options if I so chose, like toolbar style and button images and all that. And then this is your overall theme. So this is a dark theme here, graphite green. If I wanted to use a lighter theme, I could pop into here and use a light theme. But I kind of like the graphite green dark. I thought that was kind of cool. So yeah, there you go. LX Appearance. Nice. And so that's kind of a quick overview of my i3. I can't really think of anything else to cover here on i3. Like I said earlier, I do use Hyprland, but just not all the time because it's no good for OBS Studio and using virtual environments like Virt Manager. It's probably okay with VirtualBox maybe, but not with QEMU. You'll get trapped. You can't get out. The little drop-down applet won't let you out. So yeah, that's all things that suck about Wayland, but not really related to Hyprland, I don't think. Hyprland's great. So let's pop in there and take a look at it, shall we? Okay, so now I'm in Hyprland. Here is my Hyprland desktop. And the reason I don't actually use Hyprland as my daily, even though I have it installed here, is because Wayland on my machine still sucks, especially when it comes to OBS, and mainly OBS, actually, Studio. Overall, other than some other minor things like drag and drop issues with certain browsers or between an archiver and the file manager, something like that, that I can live with, even though I don't really like it. But Wayland is just not ready for prime time. I've said that many times and I stand by it. So yes, I prefer to just stick with good old Xorg because Xorg just works. And referring back to my OBS Studio, I got it over here on Windows 5, but wait, Hyprland itself, I love it. And I'm using JaKooLit script, by the way, which I'll get back to in a few seconds. But here's my OBS setup, and the main problems I have here on OBS actually is my hotkeys don't work anymore. I used to be able to actually configure in my config file, which is over here. I could add in these pass keys here, and that would allow me to pass along the keyboard shortcuts when OBS Studio is not focused. But that doesn't work anymore. Somewhere along the lines, Wayland said, no more. So they decided to make it more inconvenient for the user, another layer. And so now the onus is on OBS to try to figure out some way that they can make that work. And good luck with that. That's going to be complicated. And that's the thing. There's a lot of things from a programmer's standpoint that is stupid simple to implement and to do, especially with windowing and so forth, that is nearly impossible to accomplish in Wayland because of the complexities and the fact that it's just not as evolved as its earlier predecessor, X11, even though Wayland is technically X12. I guess you could look at it that way. But yes, and I guess the most recent example I can think of is XFCE, when XFCE updated, I think it was whisker menu, and you could resize the whisker menu simply by using the mouse and dragging it to the width or height you wanted to, and it was a really nice little feature. Now you can't do that because of Wayland. They wanted to get Wayland compatible, and it was so hard to accomplish that he finally gave up on it and said, well, screw it. So that was the end of that. So another sacrifice made in the name of Wayland. But you know, if you're the type of person that likes to waste your life away on gaming, then Wayland is a great thing. So it's not a bad thing for everybody. It's just for some people, especially someone like me that uses OBS Studio a lot. OBS Studio is not really practical because if I'm right here and I want to pause a video right now, I can't just hit a hotkey and pause it because the pause button won't work. And also, if I try to pause it using the hotkey right here, then when I go back into OBS Studio, if I try to pause it from here, the hotkey won't work anymore. It'll stop working once you try to use it outside its focus. So yeah, that's just another little thing that makes me go, wow. But other than that, let's take a look at JaKooLit's script. I got this from JaKooLit's website, actually, and let me just open up my browser real quick. And Hyprland overall, though, itself, I think is probably one of the coolest window managers on the planet. If there was an exact equivalent to Hyprland on X, I would totally be there. But I can't imagine anybody that would go to all the trouble to make an equivalent on X when X is eventually going to be phased out everywhere anyway. But someday, I'm sure Wayland will finally reach that level of usability for everybody. Again, saying that, there's a lot of people out there that can use it 100% right now, especially if you're just a gamer or somebody that doesn't even use OBS Studio. There's probably other apps that are funky under Wayland, I don't know, but OBS Studio is the one that I have issues with. Anyway, let me jump out. Yeah, JaKooLit website. So this is Fedora Hyprland, and that's what I'm running right now. is on the Fedora spin. And this is where you can get JaKooLit script, and I'll put the link in the description below. JaKooLit is really cool. Jay has made Hyprland install scripts for all the different flavors of package managers out there. So whether you're on Debian, Unstable, or SID, Ubuntu, Fedora, or Arch, even NixOS, I think, if I remember right, he's got an install script for it. And you can get Hyprland on here, and it'll just do everything for you. And you don't have to worry about all the little nuances of getting Hyprland to work. You can just run this script, and in about 10 to 15 minutes after it does its magic, you're good to go. And back here on an empty space here somewhere, here we go. I'm in 3. So here, and I don't know where my waybar went. But anyways, I'm in window 3. I must have hosed something in my config, because my waybar disappeared, and I just noticed that. So I wonder what I did wrong. I probably did something funky here down in OBS Studio, because I was kind of looking at these bind things. I'm just going to cut that out of there since they don't work anymore, and save it and see if my waybar comes back. And maybe I need to refresh it. Okay, I just hit Super Alt R and refreshed it, and it's back. So that's better. All right, so yeah, I guess I did some kind of typo in there and it kind of messed up the bar. So nice. Okay, so I got the refresh, and by default, if you want to know what the keyboard hints are, you can press, I think it's Super Alt H or hint. Maybe it's Super H. Let me try that. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's just Super H. And so here we can see all the different default keys. So if you get a little bit lost, Super H will get you in there, and then you can just kind of see what's available. And I really like the defaults, actually. A lot of them coincide with the ones I use, so I think that's kind of cool. And so here you got like W, you can choose a wallpaper. So if I just hit Super W, then I get this wallpaper selector. Oh, I hit Super E. Whoops. That's if you want to edit different configs. And the config you were just looking at was in user configuration. If I went over here to Genie, I'm in the user keybinds font conf here. So that actually is in your config directory /hyper configs. And these have the universal keybinds. And then if you backtrack and then go into user configs, then you have user keybinds here. And these are the ones that are more tailored to my specific needs here. So this is where I have my calls to like OBS Studio and my file browser and anything else I might want to add. I'll stick in the user configs to kind of keep everything organized. Okay, we're back. And what do you mean back? Well, I had to pause the video for a little bit because the furnace came on and I didn't want a lot of noise in the background. So yes, I've been sitting here for about 10 minutes actually. Anyway, I'm back, and I inadvertently changed my theme to light theme, kind of by mistake, just before I got back on here, because I was kind of looking at the bar here, JaKooLit's bar, and this is a slightly different theme than I was using earlier. I kind of noticed the little pop-up quick launch area here, so that's kind of nice. You got a quick edit access. You can launch your browser from here, terminal, file manager, and change your light theme from light to dark and dark to light. So I kind of clicked on that and it changed it to a light theme. And so that's looking good so far. I'm assuming if I open up my file manager, it'll have a light background, which it does. Great. Okay. And then if I switch it back to a dark theme, I'll probably have to restart my file manager, but let's hit it. And there it goes. And it also even made a matching wallpaper in the background. Cool. And it has a dark look to it. Nice. So that's our theme switcher, and that is quite cool as well. And then at the end we got, what's this? The Rofi menu. On a left click, if you do a middle click, you get the wallpaper menu, and then a right click is the waybar layout menu. Nice. So let's check that out. So first I'll just left click on it and it should bring up Rofi, and here we can select our different apps or just type it in the search window and it'll come right up. Very cool. And if I escape out of that, and then what was the other one? Middle click will bring up a wallpaper menu. So if I hit the middle click, I don't think I middle clicked right. Let me try that again. There we go.
How can you screw up a middle click, Jack?
I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, here's some different wallpapers, and it looks like there's a whole bunch of them in here. And JaKooLit always has these really cool looking wallpapers. A lot of them are kind of anime themed. They're really beautiful. Different artwork kind of things there. So that's nice. I like it. I kind of like the one that was just on there. And it also gives you an option. You can use that as your SDDM background, your login screen there when you start up your computer. So that's kind of cool. I guess I could hit yes and see what it does. Needs a password. So apparently it needs authentication so it can add the background to the SDDM manager, which makes sense. I mean, I can see why that would need authentication since it's going into the file system there. And then right click is the Waybar layout menu. So if you want to change the look of your Waybar, you can pop in here. And it looks like I got a whole bunch of entries in here from a previous Hyprland install that I did probably a month ago, and that was another installer script from a guy called My Linux for Work, I think it is. I forgot his name, but he's quite cool. He's got some great Hyprland scripts there, and he had just recently released one for Fedora as well. So yeah, it looks like they're all kind of in here. So I don't know if I can discern between JaKooLit and M4LW scripts here. So I did see a J script up there, but a lot of these I think are from the M4LW, and that might have actually dominated J's. So yeah, that's unfortunate. Although these are pretty cool. I like his Waybar layouts. A little too much on the transparency though. I kind of like having more of a solid background in there, but he does have a lot of cool things. Also, you can use a keyboard shortcut. I think it's Super Alt B, B for bar, and that should bring up your themes as well. Now, if you do Control Alt B, then that should give you your styles. So let's go there, Control Alt B. Control Super B. Sorry. And then you can change your Waybar styles. And some of the, maybe most of these, I don't know, could be the M4LW styles too, but I think they're probably a mixture here. And so if I just choose a different style, then you can make your Waybar look different. And I kind of like that, actually. That's cool. There's all kinds of ways you can tweak your Waybar for different looks. So just alternating between Super Alt B and Control Super B, you can do all kinds of stuff. I guess if I go too much into it, it'll get confusing, but those are some kind of the more major things I wanted to touch on anyway. And then over here, that's our Rofi menu. So our Rofi stuff is moved down here again. And like I said, middle click is your wallpaper. So if you want to change your wallpaper anytime, you can just pop in here and just choose a bunch of different stuff here. And maybe I'll take a look at that one. And that looks kind of cool. Somebody in a Japanese something, sushi bar or something. Cool. And yeah, I'll make that a background too. I gotta log in. I forgot. Okay, authenticated. Nice. And you got the Roman numerals there. So I think that's a JaKooLit style there, I'm quite sure. And there's a calendar, so that is nice. When you click up there on the clock, it gives you a nice display calendar. Very cool. And it goes away when you move your mouse away. This is where you can inhibit your lock screen, I believe. And I really like the fact that you can just at a glance go up there and inhibit it or turn it on. The eyeball means that it's on. And of course, this is another shortcut to your hint. So if you need hints, you can click up there and bring up the screen too if you forgot that the shortcut was Super H. Very cool. And then of course we got our Ethernet settings, then our sys tray here, and we can see that our OBS Studio is running and all that. And then here's our volume control. And if you right click on it, then you'll open up the mixer control here, or your PAUV control or PAVU control. So that's where you can kind of get to all that. And if you just simply click on it, it'll mute everything, or it'll mute the speaker. And if you click on the mic, you can mute the mic. Just kidding. But yes, it'll mute if you click that, but I didn't click it. And then here we got our, I don't know what that is, lock screen, I think. And then our keyboard. So if you have more than one keyboard setting up there, like maybe you got it set for English and Russian, well, you can select from up there, or Chinese or what have you. Oh, there's our lock screen. So this must be something else. So I'm not sure what that's referring to, but And we got our power menu. So if I click that, then here's our logout. And that's kind of cool. I like the graphics. Nice. So those are our different things. And yeah, so that's just kind of a quick look at the Hyprland thing. And I really do like the Hyprland. I go in here quite a bit, but it's just if I'm going to use like Vert Manager or if I need to use OBS, then I'm out of here. Wayland is just too unfriendly for those environments. So that's when I go back to i3. Yes. So I'm going to jump back here into my config. And let's just take a real quick look at my config here. This is the Hyprland config, and this is not that much different than the default really right now. Up here you have your variables that kind of denote different things. So your super key, the variable for that is main mod, and that's what you see down here when you see bind equals main mod. That means super key. So super key plus A will execute the Raabe overview thingy and AGS. So I never actually hit that before, so let's do that. Super A. So now we can just see all kinds of cool stuff there. And I'm not even quite sure what the AGS is. I think that's a customized shell for GNOME. That's something that's recently been kind of added as a demo there in Jay's scripts. So I haven't really had a chance to look at that, but I could go in here and look at different things, then select different workspaces. It looks like we got some numbered workspaces here, like this is our open one, then this is our Genie and OBS Studio. So this is kind of what's open right now. And then this is where we can click and go directly to that space. And of course, the Raabe app launcher here is Super D, and that brings up the Raabe app. And I think that has a transparent background. So if I go back over here, you can kind of see the transparency, and that's pretty nice. I like that. Quite cool. And I think you can see that in the terminal as well. So if we bring that up, we got a really beautiful blur effect there. Typically, I turn off the transparency in the terminal because it's just too distracting with the background. But when you have a blur, it really kind of changes the game, and then the transparency is cool. And that's really what the transparency is meant for anyways, is to be used with a blur, in my opinion. So yeah. But overall, the config is actually pretty simple to use. And our variable for kitty is term. And so somewhere down here, we're using that variable to launch kitty. I think it's right here. So if we hit super return, then it'll open up term, which is kitty. And that's what we were just in there, was kitty. Now, I also have XFCE4 terminal installed on here. So if I wanted to change that, I could actually come up here and change this variable to that XFCE4-terminal, or I could just make another key binding and maybe do Alt, I don't know, C for console and just assign it directly there. So very easy to do. And another little trick or shortcut that I do, for example, when I want to launch a browser, I want it to open up in Workspace 2 automatically and take me there. So to do that, all I have to do is after the exec here, exec comma, then just before I put Firefox, I'll put in brackets Workspace 2. And that'll tell Hyprland to open up Firefox in Workspace 2. I'm in my OBS Studio, but I want to launch Firefox. I hit Super B, and then it'll take me over to Workspace 2. There it is. It's on Workspace 2. And so, yeah, that's my little shortcut there. And that looks like, that's Derek Taylor's options channel. I tell you what, if you're into options or thinking about getting into options, I haven't come across anyone finer than Derek's channel here. He gives some real gold for information. I'm not an options trader, so I'll just say that right up front. But I like to hear what he has to say, and I pick up a lot of things that are really interesting from listening to Derek there. So really love that channel. It's great. If you're thinking about getting into options, you really ought to check it out. The reason I appreciate it is because I day trade myself, and I'm more of a futures trader. So kind of a different world than options, but it's kind of in the same vein of interest, I guess. I can't think of a better word at the moment, but so for someone like me, this is like a really interesting channel. And Derek actually has done quite well. Fairly short amount of time. He's already up to 4.43K subscribers. I'm jealous. Not really. But yeah, I'm thinking he's going to be right up there over 100K one of these days. So he's just moving right along. And with that, I think I've just pretty much covered everything here on the Hyprland that I was going to look at. And let's just get to a clear area. Yeah, that's my configuration. This is kind of my daily driver during the day. And this is just kind of a quick basic overview, I guess. But this is kind of my home where I do my day-to-day stuff. And so there you go. And I hope this tour was helpful, and maybe this will give you something to either aspire installing on your own computer or to run away from, however you took it. But anyways, I hope you found this enjoyable, and if you did, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.